Incoherent response, were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought?
All right. Good afternoon and good morning. We have lots of rational thoughts to cover today. I've got a wonderful guest on today, man. She's a current CEO Master Chair for Vistage Worldwide, which is the world's leading CEO peer advisory board in Orange County. She's been a senior executive with companies like IBM, Xerox, Gallup, and worked with CEOs in Fortune 500 companies globally, setting strategic direction and leadership development. Our guest today is a founder of Corporate Development Consulting and Center for Applied Emotional Intelligence in Southern California. Boy, does Southern California need more emotional intelligence? She's worked with organizations globally, improving their leadership effectiveness, strategic planning, and employee productivity. She is the author of Role of Emotional Intelligence and Conflict Management in the Workplace, as well as an Amazon best-selling author. And her book is called The New Currency of Leadership. And she was the host of a live TV show on KRLA, The Work Doctor, and TV programs throughout Southern California. Welcome to our show today, the esteemed Dr. Mary Malek.
Thank you.
What a build-up. How you doing, Miriam?
I know. I can't live up to that, but thank you so much.
Absolutely. So, listen, we've got a lot to cover today in a short period of time. We've known each other for a while, so some of the questions I may chat with you about, you're like, Doug, you know that, you know me. But that's okay because the people watching today may not.
That's
so
fine.
Xerox, Gallup, IBM, all that corporate stuff, and now all the things in your resume about emotional intelligence and leadership. What caused the transition there?
Well, there was not really a transition. It was just going from large corporate America to not wanting to be there anymore. And that really was what made me write the book, was the lack of EQ in many of the larger organizations, the politics, and how it made people feel. I have never been happier in my life. And that's because I'm not working for one of those large corporations. What I'm doing now is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life, which is working with CEOs in the Orange County, Los Angeles area, trying to help them become a better version of themselves, as well as we know, leaders have a rippling effect on the organization. So since they are the CEO of the organization, they have a major role in the lives of the people that work for them. So what I'm trying to do is the byline of my company is making work a better place. And it really comes from the place of not having been happy for so long when I was working for the larger corporations. And I wanted to make sure that since we spend so much of our time at work, that we are enjoying it. And so I was teaching at Pepperdine and at Chapman University, and I was working with students, but I realized it was from bottom up, and I really need to do from top down in order to make that difference. Actually, it needs to be from, all directions. But the CEOs of a company really do set the tone for the culture of the organization and the impact that it has on people's lives. So
love it.
Amazing. Yeah.
People they toss the word out, CEO corporations and whatnot, but I'm always pretty impressed with what these corporations really are in terms of employing, hundreds if not thousands of people. And these people are responsible for a lot of families and whatnot.
Right.
Can you give people who don't know Vistage, give them a little rundown on what you do and the types of companies you actually work with?
Yeah. Basically, Vistage is a peer advisory board. It's a private peer advisory board, and it's CEOs of mid-sized companies that we get together once a month. And the whole idea is, how can we collectively make each other's lives better, come up with best practices, and really question each other about the decisions that we are making. And we bring speakers that really talk to vulnerability, accountability, and every phase from finance to people management and self-development. And I think that if I were ever, which I hope I never do, but if I were ever going to work for a company, if their CEO is not in a program like this, I would never do it. I really think that running a company without having some sort of an accountability from a peer advisory board is really malpractice. None of us are that smart alone, but we can be a lot smarter collectively.
Nice. You know, I was always fascinated by the one conversation we had years ago, because I know you're working with people who run like, 10, 20, 50, $100 million companies. And the topics must be pretty interesting. We've got HR from a very high level, or big finance and strategy, whatnot. And you mentioned that when you have your one-on-ones with them, it was always the personal crap they're going through that you're working. Is that still true?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there are some tactical things that relate to the finance of the company. But even the finance or people management, really the root of it is a personal. What is your personal constitution that causes you to take risk or not? What is your personal constitution that causes you to tolerate poor performance? And so we go through all of that. At the end of the day, it's about how that individual feels about being a leader, how they feel about themselves, what are the trigger points that they have, what are the challenges that they're not facing, and good, bad, and ugly. I'm somebody who mirrors that for them and kind of shows them what I see from outside. And
wow.
yeah.
So here's how ugly you are. You
I have someone like that for me, I think it's really important. Everybody needs to have a mirror. And every once in a while there are smudges on our mirror and somebody needs to help us use Windex and clean that up.
Or a big hammer and break the mirror.
No, let's not do that.
Okay. And this leads me to my big question about your book, which I had the honor to work with you on that. But can you tell us about that? I mean, where it came from and what it's about?
Yes. Thank you very much for having helped me, publish that. I really, really appreciate all of your help. The book really came again from a couple of decades of working in organizations and recognizing some of the things that were not addressed well. And they were the soft skills that needed to be there, but they weren't. For example, communication, the culture, and motivation, and those kinds of stuff. And sometimes when you go through an MBA program, a lot of focus is on the financing and the financial well-being of an organization and the responsibilities to the shareholders. But what happens to the responsibility to the people that work there? And so that's really what I wanted to focus on. What are some of the things that leadership can do in order to have a better organization? And those are the softer things that are not financial. So
yes, but the way you framed it up, however, it was unlike anything I've ever seen before, because you call it the new currency of leadership, and you outline these cultural, innovative, community things as actual currencies in a company, which might resonate more with the MBA mindset of looking at bottom line and spreadsheets, saying, well, there's also a currency of community or innovation, right?
Exactly, because you can't just look at the balance sheet and that kind of stuff, because if the culture is faulty, people are not going to be as productive. They're not going to show up. So the retention isn't going to be, all of those will have an impact on the bottom line. So the new currency is, how are we measuring the things that do actually contribute to the bottom line? And those things are people motivated? Are they engaged? Or is there good communication going on? If there's not good communication, you may not know as a leader what's going on, in the front lines. And so you may miss out opportunities or make mistakes. And
right.
So it all comes down to the bottom line.
It totally makes sense, theoretically, of course, because it's easy to measure, ones and zeros and bottom line numbers. But how do you measure the currency of innovation, for example?
Bottom line. It still comes down to bottom line. I mean, I am working with all of my Vistage CEOs on those new currencies. So when we sit down, we talk about teamwork, when we talk about accountability, when we talk about motivation, when we talk about communication, all of those, they can see the results. They can see the engagement. They can see the retention of their employees. It costs money to replace people. Right. So retention has a currency associated with it. And so when they can actually measure all of that, and actually Gallup has done a fabulous job of actually taking those, such as commitment, motivation, engagement, etc., and translating it into dollars and measuring it. And so I think that is really critical.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'm guessing, Gallup surveys was the first thing that comes to mind. So they're really good at that. What was out of all those currencies in your book, what's the hardest one to measure the leading indicator on? Maybe that's a better way to phrase a question.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, there's a leading indicator and lagging indicator. Lagging indicator is, bottom line went up, easy. We did this one program with community outreach, our branding increased, and our bottom line went up 5%. That could be easily measured, I suppose. But if you got more than one thing going on, which you probably do, how do you know what it was that actually triggered the increase in the bottom line?
It's a good question. I really don't know if I've gone into, I mean, mine is not as scientific. Let me prove to you. It's using the data that was available to support it. So I didn't do the research. I just did the supporting factors that contribute to it.
Okay, that's great. Cool. Okay. And I understand that when you're working with your visits chairs, you've got CEOs, and you also have people who are not CEOs. You still have the executive group?
Yes, I actually have too many groups, but it's really good. I have the key executive group, which is people that report into the CEOs. And now I'm starting another one called, it's called Advancing Leaders. And these are the people that report into the key execs. So I am able to look at the organization from top, middle, and the bottom. And that way, sometimes you wonder if they all work for the same company, because when I'm talking to the key execs, they see the issue one way. When I talk to the CEOs, they don't see that at all. And so for me to have the visibility to the organization where I could see how the different levels may be different in respect to culture, communication, priorities, and strategy helps me work with them to help them align. And I think that's really critical. You can't just work with CEOs and think you've got it done. You've got to know what's going on in the front line. You've got to know what's going on in the middle management, and then really see where the gaps are.
What about how many different, I mean, I don't know, how many groups do you have right now?
I have 5.
5 groups, and total number of people you're working with then is about
100.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's great though, and I know I'm working a lot, but it's almost like if I think about, okay, if I were to work less, which group would I cut? I can't. It's like giving up a child.
Yeah.
I have 5 beautiful babies. I don't want to give up any of them. I've gotten really close to all of my members, and I feel that there is, movement in what they're doing in their personal growth, professional growth.
Right.
I feel very responsible to be there for them. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to hear about your problem child then. Give me, no, don't name names, but I want to know like what your biggest challenge has been recently of your members that you've helped them with.
I'm not working with problem childs anymore. My life it's my job. I'm not an infirmary. I am working with people that are truly dedicated to their growth, and I work with them. I honestly don't have a problem child. The only thing, if there was anything, I would say it's sometimes at meetings it's like herding cats, and they have a lot of priorities competing for their attention when they come to the meeting, and so I've got to make it really interesting for them to stay focused.
Okay.
But that's it, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll leave no problem childs because you're working with winners and leaders. That's good.
Yeah.
What's been the largest or most dramatic improvement you've seen with one of your members? You don't have to mention a name, but a whole story would be really cool.
Okay. There was somebody that I've been working with who had severe anxieties about failure, for example, and not wanting to take risks.
And what kind of company did the person represent where they work with? What was it? The industry, not the name, but like
housing. Let's put it that way.
Housing. And what size of company was it? I'm trying to get a perspective.
It's about $20 million company.
Okay.
And working with the CEO, we discussed what were some of the challenges that she was facing, and a lot of them came from fear. And I think most of us, we get in our own way. And I think it was being in the group, watching other people take chances that, for example, she was not comfortable taking, and recognizing, wow, it's costing me. This fear that's enveloped me all these years is costing me millions of dollars. And so working with her, we got to the root of what was going on. It took a couple years to get there. It was not as clear to her as it was to me. And so I have to be patient and make sure that I bring them along and go at their speed and maybe push them a little bit. But it's been amazing. And she, bless her heart, she tells me that her husband and her daughter say, you can never leave this group, because they have seen the dramatic change it has made in her decision making, but also about how she shows up in life, which is a lot happier, a lot more hopeful, and much more positive about life. So I think that's very heartwarming to me.
That's great. Absolutely. Did she see much improvement in her business or personal life?
Absolutely. I think she's doubled in the past 8 years that we've been working together.
Wow.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's the other thing. I think, if you look at the statistics for Vistage, the Vistage members grow 2.2 times their competitors that are not in a Vistage group. So
Wow.
you can actually measure the difference.
Yeah, that's a heck of a testimony. Okay, so have you had anybody who you just couldn't get out of their own way and just stayed flat for a while, or?
Yeah. And and sometimes you just I tell them, hey, if you don't want to grow, maybe this is not a good use of your time and money. And sometimes they will say, yeah, maybe they'll step out, or sometimes it's a wake-up call for them to say, oh, somebody's calling me on my
okay.
Yes.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. The book is called New Currency of Leadership by Mary Malek, #1 bestseller, by the way. And I'd like to ask you one closing question, Mary. It's where are you going? What's next? You got 100 babies or 5 children, 100 grandchildren. You've been doing this for a while. You're a top Vistage chair. What's next for you?
I don't know if there needs to be a next. I am so happy doing what I'm doing, and just watching people, either retire or exit their business with a lot of money is fantastic, and then filling that space with new people. I think my biggest challenge is running out of capacity. So
yeah, do you have
really good problem to have.
Yeah, well, can you leverage that somehow, bring in a partner or anything, or not? How does that work with you guys?
I'm the secret sauce, baby.
That's right. Okay, that's great. Mary Malek, best-selling author of New Currency of Leadership, and one of the top Vistage chairs, I think, in the organization. Certainly by quantity, quality, and any other measurement tool they have there, right? So thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate you.
Loved having you ask me, and I'm very glad that I was here. Thank you so much, Doug. I really
bet. My pleasure. Okay. Don't forget to subscribe. Click below here, or go to Spotify, YouTube, or iTunes. Subscribe to our show, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much.